There's trouble. Time for a bit of Jim Does SuperCoach. That's right. G'day, legends. Jimmy here from NBA Straya. Jim Does SuperCoach for a bit of NBA SuperCoach. Wrapping up a chaotic week 3, which was pretty fun. I'll tell you what, NBA week 3 is in the bag. How did we all do? Are you broken, beaten, and scarred, having watched Metallica on the weekend? Maybe. But either way, look, it was a crazy week. I ended up scoring 1,173, mostly because I had Nikola Jokic and he's 208 as my captain. Like, that was my plan going into this. It's like Jokic with 4 games. Like, lock it in. That was pretty good. So that put me in the top 1% for this week, ranked 175th overall for the week, leaving my season rank at 506, which is pretty good. Big jump from last week. Big disappointing week last time. Feeling much better. Feeling great. Especially, look, when you look at the actual rankings across the comp, I think the average score this week was 864. The top 5% was 1,138. So I obviously got past that. Did into the top 1%. So very, very happy with my week. Especially because I think I talked this out on last week's show, right? Like, a lot of my success this week came from having Tyrese Maxey in place of Austin Reaves, which is a bit of a bullet dodged. But Maxey, the 131, I think the thing we talked about last week is that I had Maxey versus Cade Cunningham. Ended up going with Maxey. Just sort of trusted that sheer volume a little bit. And it ended up working out just. He only just outscored Cade, but here we are. Also, SGA just finally really came into his own. Big 145 from him helped out. Jaylen Brown had a really good week, 109. Even Orsar Thompson was awesome Thompson for me, 85. Wemby was probably the big disappointment, so we'll get into that. But before we do, what do we do when it comes to NBA SuperCoach? Each week we have a very, very short window before the first rolling lockout. It's like 17 hours from like as I'm taping this. So you gotta get on it, I'll tell you what. So with 15 teams next week with 4 games, we've got plenty of options for trades and stuff like that. So, I mean, we'll get to the teams in a second, but there is also Philly with only 2 games. So that's kind of like my sort of balancing thing here, like whether or not I move Maxey on again, bring him back in later in, or just ride him for the 2 games and sort of see how we go. But with 15 teams with the 4 games this week, look, 4-game weeks are rolled SuperCoach cold. We understand that. Atlanta, Charlotte, Cleveland, the Mavs, Golden State, the Clippers, Lakers, the Bucks, the Pels, Orlando, Phoenix, Portland, Sacramento, San Antonio, and Utah. So some pretty good ones in there, right? So if you think about Atlanta, that's if you've got maybe Jalen Johnson. Perhaps if you've got Dyson Daniels, you're feeling okay about this. Charlotte, a lot of us have got Con Knipple the nipple. That's kind of neat. Be a real shame if LaMelo came back and put a bit of a dent in Con Knipples' numbers, though. I'll tell you that much. After a 2-game week, he looked really, really good. The Cavs, that means a lot of Donnie Mitchell. Got to keep an eye on Darius Garland as well now that he's back. I wonder if that impacts Mitchell's actual output just that little bit. We sort of saw that last year. Like his scoring output sort of plateaued. He had a really great week leading up to this. He's been really, really good. But with Garland back, that's a little bit more of the ball sharing duties. Ball handling duties shared, as it were. So we'll see what happens there. For the Mavs, obviously, more than half the comp still got Cooper Flag. Outside of that, the Mavs are just terrifyingly irrelevant when it comes to SuperCoach. Golden State, Steph Curry missed a couple of games this week. Jimmy Butler also missed. So it's a bit tough to sort of trust some of these Warriors. I do have a cash cow on there, though, that I'll talk about later. The Clippers, if you've got anybody, Kawhi's already out injured. Harden missed a game the other day for personal reasons, i.e., he had lots of things on his mind. I don't know. The Clippers are just really tough anyway because they're just all sharing the ball. Harden should be a baseline SuperCoach legend, but with that random missed game this week, it really would have tripped up folks who went with him. The Lakers, obviously that's a big Luka spot. They've got 4 games this week. That's a Luka smash spot for me at 21 mil. Love that for this week. Same with Milwaukee and Giannis. Giannis has just been incredible. Absolute MVP style stuff. The Pelicans, keep an eye on Derek Queen, Jeremiah Zero Fears, a couple of those cheapos. Orlando's just a bit of a weird one. They're so topsy-turvy. I would love Paolo Banchero in my team, but it's just, I don't know. He hasn't quite hit his stride this year. He was pretty good today. Maybe that's like sign of things to come. Phoenix, Devin Booker, Devin Booker, Devin Booker. He's so good. He's been absolutely unstoppable. Jalen Green came into the team this week, then went out again injured. It's just going to be more Devin Booker. Portland, this is the Denny Avdija show. I'm going to be trying to get him and Luka into my team this week. I don't know how, but we'll see if we can find a way. Portland's, outside of that, Shaedon Sharp's been pretty disappointing. Drew Holiday's been surprisingly solid. Their weird battery of centers, like every so often they'll pop off. Sacramento, look, Russell Westbrook has popped off going absolutely crazy. But again, as like Zach LaVine, DeMar, Sabonis and co sort of rotate in and out. Like Sabonis ought to be a SuperCoach gun, but with two center spots, if you're going to use your flex spot there as well, it's a bit hard to sort of get him in if you've got Jokic. Spurs have got 4 games this week, which is great for Wemby owners like me. Feel good about that. And outside of that, though, you've got De'Aaron Fox back now. We'll sort of see how that helps or hinders Wemby's scoring. And Utah, folks have still got Ace Bailey. Larry Markkinen was one of the best, most traded in players last week. And we'll get to how that actually worked out in a second. So there's the 15 teams with 4 games this week. That's who we're going to be aiming for. Those are the big names on each of those. And I sort of wanted to hit before we jump into like a wrap of the week, what we've learned. What have we learned this week? I want going into a week, I just want a bit of certainty around my players, Luka missing a game is a bit terrifying. Harden missing a game, terrifying. Kawhi just going, all right, now I'm injured, I'm a fun guy. You're like, what? No one knew about this. That's crazy. Steph Curry getting sick. Like, you can't really predict that sort of stuff. But we just want dudes who are just going to play as many games as possible. Like, that's why Jokic, Giannis, and co are just so good. They just play. But speaking of which, let's quickly look at some injuries. Austin Reaves. We don't have a firm update on when he's going to be back, so it makes it pretty tough to sort of bring him back in ahead of a 4-game week for the Lakers. LaMelo still out with his ankle. Kawhi. Here he goes. Clippers, don't want to trust him. AD, he's still out. Trae Young, obviously out for a month. Dylan Harper out for a few more weeks. It's pretty crazy, but here we are. I think what we've sort of learned from this little like burst of like, oh God, that guy's injured, is we just have to tread, like Ant-Man has come back. That's really cool. I'm excited to sort of see when Minnesota have a 4-game week if we try to be getting, Ant-Man in. His efficiency can sometimes take a bit of a hit, but I don't know. I'm fascinated how we all feel about Luka this week, for instance, right? They've got a 4-game week to the Lakers. And you think, well, that's great. There is a New Orleans Pelicans on the road and then a Milwaukee Bucks on the road game Friday, Saturday this week. Does he play both? These are the questions we now have to look at for SuperCoach when it comes to some of these absolute SuperCoach studs. So it's a bit rough, but here we are. Right, who did awesome this week? The top 10 players were Nikola Jokic with that 208. He was awesome. SGA had 145. That was just crazy. Like, Giannis had 148. SGA 145. Jalen Duren, that's right. Big man for the Detroit basketballing Pistons. I love him. He had 144 for the week, which was unreal. Tyrese Maxey finishes 131. So does Isaiah Hartenstein. Hello. That's crazy that he managed 131. And Chet was playing a bunch of those games too. He had the massive 33-11 game the other day. Cade Cunningham comes in at 124. So as I mentioned, Tyrese Maxey just outscores him by 7. I feel vindicated. That was spending a little bit less cash. Maxey went up 940K this week, so my team value went up a big chunk, while Cade Cunningham only went up 300 from a starting point. Now they're basically, Maxey's actually worth more than Cade Cunningham. LP Şengün had 118. Alexander Sarr, if you had him as a bit of a cheap mid-ranger at 12 mil, props to you. 117, he crushes it. Julius Randle with 116, same as Nick Claxton, the big man for the Brooklyn Nets. Donnie Mitchell, 109, same as Jaylen Brown. Russell Westbrook, as I mentioned, 106. And Denny Avdija rounds out the top 15 with 105. So that sort of lends itself to like looking and going, all right, well, obviously, who are the bolters, Jim? Well, that was Hartenstein. 131 was just incredible. But Sarr and Claxton, Denny Avdija, like these sorts of names tell you right, what can we sort of at least maybe rely on a little bit when it comes to NBA SuperCoach scoring? And obviously that comes down to rebounds, steals, blocks, a lot of those numbers that sort of can help, the defensive numbers that can really help boost a sort of a player like Hartenstein, a player like Sarr, who might not be absolutely lighting the world on fire offensively, thinking of them as an absolute super duper star, but they're just sort of doing a bit of everything. And that's, especially like someone like Claxton, like that's massive. So when Brooklyn are playing, Claxton's like one of the three most senior dudes. Cam Thomas is now out. It's the Michael Porter Jr., Nick Claxton show. So Claxton's going to keep putting up big, big, big numbers. Obviously, Russell Westbrook, he was just off his head. But that's also, tread carefully. It's Russell Westbrook in year 18. This is them without Levine at times. Lots of injuries already. Russell Westbrook basically there was like a game where Schroeder shot 0 of 10. But the ones that I'm interested as well, like Ajay Mitchell had 97. Talk about him again in a second. He was just absolutely incredible. I talked about him last week and I just wasn't sure about his role. Well, now I know it. The role is awesome dude off the bench for OKC who might win Sixth Man of the Year. Jeez, he's been shooting super hot. Jaime Jaquez and Davion Mitchell as well. A couple of Miami Heat guys, 88 and 86. Very solid scoring there. Love that for them. So those are sort of like a couple of the weird left to center bolter names that we probably might not have been expecting to be so good this week. It was good to see, look, a couple who repaid the faith. Someone like Derek White scored you 95 points this week, which is pretty good, obviously. There was plenty of folks. I think he's now owned at 7.4%. It was a lot higher than that the last couple of weeks. Repaying the faith, Orsar Thompson, 85 for me this week. Thank you very much. And, I mean, the ones we all went in for a bit of Cedric Coward. He's now owned by 26% of coaches. And he was awesome. 82 points. Absolutely fantastic gear from Cedric Coward. Minot, if you were playing Josh Minot on court like I did, he managed to 56. So that would have counted, I think, over the top of my VJ Edgecombe 48. He was really, really good. And Ryan Rollins. So I think the trades that I made last week, we talked out Quentin Jackson and stuff like that, but I think eventually it was like, cool, Ryan Rollins, Colin Murray-Boyles, and I think the other player I brought in, was Maxey, right? So nailed, I think, the Rollins part of that. Maxey at 131. Colin Murray-Boyles only managed 27, but he still made money. That was just, Toronto were just such a weird team this week. And then I feel like just in general, like Colin Murray-Boyle, like they have Pirtle in and out of the lineup there. And it's just sort of a frustrating watch. Every time you sort of see them, you're like, all right, what are you going to do this time? They're like, we don't know. We're Toronto. It's like, come on, man. We can do better than this, can't we? Anyway, but outside of this, the other, Ryan Rollins scoring 69, nice. He was just fantastic all week for Milwaukee. So feels pretty good that we've still got him on a 4-game week now as well. And it just sort of just bashes you over the head about how valuable Giannis is. So my big question would be, side swapping someone like Wemby to Giannis, can you do that? Can we side swap someone like SGA to Giannis in a week where SGA's only got the 3 games? Don't know. Let's talk that out. Biggest bust, though, this week. Can I say Wemby? Because it was 77 in his 3 games. He had a break even to 120. Just a bit of how you going kind of vibe, right? But with 4 games this week for the Spurs, with a couple of interesting ones as well, right? So they play Chicago, Golden State, Sacramento. Not exactly a murderer's row of defensive centers for Wemby to combat, I feel. Golden State, he's like a foot taller than Draymond. So I'm pretty happy with Wemby to the point where we might be throwing the C on him this week. Just saying. We'll see how we go. If we can get Luka in, if we get Giannis in, I'll probably maybe go them just for the simple fact, Wemby, the defense is being just shaded towards him to such a dramatic degree this last week has been a little bit scary. So I feel like Giannis, Luka are probably my captain picks over the top of him at the moment for those teams that have got 4 games. But again, this is the problem with Luka, possibly having that weird back-to-back in New Orleans and Milwaukee. If he rests one of those days, who knows? The Bucks, They play at Dallas, at Charlotte, then have a home game against Charlotte, and then that's a back-to-back with the Lakers. So, I don't know, maybe they rest Giannis for one of those games, but by the same token, I don't know if they can afford to rest Giannis. So, I don't mind if you got Giannis, maybe throw the C on him. Otherwise, who are the other biggest busts? If you kept Austin Reaves, I think 18% of coaches still had him, so he missed every game this week. That was brutal. LaMelo was the same, still 6% owned. DMPs all week with his ankle injury. Steph Curry was a tough one as well, right? Because he was like a really, really solid choice the first week or two. 23 points this week because he was sick. He missed 2 games. Makes him an interesting buy low candidate, just saying. Jimmy Butler missed games as well. Kawhi's out injured. So if you had those in your teams, you're just kicking yourself and going, oh, this is brutal. That's a bit of a bust for you. Ace Bailey, 26 points, still owned by 45% of the comp. I jumped off pretty early, having seen all this. Felt fine about going to Colin Murray-Boyles, who scored 27. But still, that's more than 26 last time I checked. So thank you to Colin Murray-Boyles. I mean, that's kind of almost a little bit of a bust as well after he had like a really good week last week where I think just playing the 3 times obviously put a bit of a lid on what he could do. Toronto have got 3 more games this week. They've got a 4-game week in week 5. I feel okay about keeping Colin Murray-Boyles on my bench. But, who knows what's going to happen in the trade frenzy that we've got between now and in 17 hours. So, in terms of the other busts, like Quentin Jackson was another one we talked out last week, and then he went out injured. That was a bullet dodge for me because I went with Rollins instead of Quentin Jackson, thankfully. And now Nembhard is back as well for the Pacers. So, Quentin Jackson, thanks, but we're okay. Yeah. And I think that's about all. Buzelis was a bit of a rough one. 42 after a 70 this week. He had 2 shocking games in the middle of his week. Yeah, not great. Lynn Williams had 29 after 65 last week. Chet comes back. He gets sort of knocked down the totem pole. Cam Whitmore managed 16 points. He's 10% owned. That's brutal vibes for 10% of all super coaches. And Trey Johnson, we talked about him last week for the Washington Wizards. He managed 36, I think, this week on a break-even of 41. He was a pretty popular pickup, owned by 6% of coaches. You could sort of see the framework for him just being a fill-it-up gunner on a team that's not really going places. But that inefficiency can really, really hurt. So that's one of those things we're going to sort of tread carefully about. I also, in terms of kind of busts, VJ Edgecombe managed 48 this week. He still went up in price because his break-even, I think, was 21, I want to say. And he basically got to this point where Jared McCain came back for the Sixers, and you sort of saw he had the week. He had 21 points, 2, 15, and 10. VJ's awesome. VJ's going to be really good, but this is what happens to rookies, right? In the NBA, things around them change on the team. They have to adjust to different roles, different people. Embiid's suddenly in, Embiid's back out. Jared McCain's back. He's playing X amount of minutes. VJ Edgecombe has got a slightly different role. The eye test tells me that VJ Edgecombe is just really, really good and he'll be super solid. But with Philly playing a 2-game week this week, I'm also kind of happy if we move him on for something else and maybe bring him back in a couple of weeks. I mean, when we've got this amount of trades, we're trying to make as much cash as we can early on, right? We're trying to score as many points as we can while making a lot of cash. He's got a break-even of 21 this week. He's likely to hit it, but there's also the possibility that VJ Edgecombe doesn't get to the 21 this week. If, they play Boston, they play Detroit. That's 2 pretty interesting teams, 2 Eastern Conference rivals. I mean, he's had 2 games this week where he scored 2 and he scored 10. So I don't know. I feel okay if we're going to move him on and sort of see how it goes. But anyway, there you go. Those are the sort of busts for this week. There's a couple of other names out there, but not massive. Cash cows, that's the big one, right? Ajay Mitchell, as I mentioned, 7.7 million. We talked him out last week. Wasn't sure about his role. It turns out his role is awesome because he's really good. Or at least he's got Mark Daigneault's sort of support and he's just happy to let him go because he trusts him. So coming off the bench or starting like he did today, this is where you go, man, the vagaries of SuperCoach are pretty crazy. He had 21, 6 and 4 with 3 steals today, did Ajay Mitchell, starting against the Grizzlies. So this is what happens. They suddenly got SGA, Case and Wallace, Ajay Mitchell starting on that team. OKC are 10 and 1. They're just sort of throwing it up against the wall going, we're just really good. We're just really deep. Check this out. And Ajay Mitchell shooting 44% from the floor. He's only at 28.6 from 3, but he's kind of doing everything else. Like he's getting assists, he's getting steals, and that's really helping his SuperCoach scoring. So he's at this point where his break even is -10. He's at 7.7 mil. So that's going to be, you could basically do the straight swap from VJ Edgecombe to Ajay Mitchell. But I mean, OKC also only played the 3 games this week. He'll still obviously hit his break even. He'll still make you money, but just keep an eye on that total overall score because there's a little bit of a ceiling on it. Otherwise, who else we got? Who are some cash cows? Derek Queen on the Pelicans. They play the 4 games this week. He's at 5.2 mil, break even at -3. He has a really good role as well, I think, on that Pelicans team. So if you're going to switch around some of your small forwards, power forwards, Derek Queen's a really, really good bench option, I reckon. Will Richard plays for the Golden State Warriors, and just every time he gets a chance, he delivers. He's been absolutely fantastic. He scored 62 points this week. He got his first ever career start, dropped 30 points, and is at 4.7 mil. So his break even is -8. He looks really, really fun. But the problem is, I mean, Steve Kerr could also turn around, and if Steph Curry's healthy, if a bunch of their other bench dudes are healthy, Will Richard just might get buried again. But if he plays, he's going to make money. So it's a pretty tough decision, that one. Otherwise, Cedric Howard is still going to go up. He's got a break even of 2. He's been fantastic. He scored 82 points for us this week, up to 7.5 mil. Obviously, Josh Minott keeps going up. He had 56. He's up to 5.8 mil. And, I mean, Colin Murray-Boyles, he also scored 27, as I mentioned, 5.5 mil. His break-even this week is at 26. And like that's the sort of like, you know, landing spot for a lot of these break-evens for those cheapies. So keep an eye on that. Kalkbrenner is still doing really, really well for Charlotte. He's now up to 6.6 mil, break-even of 15 this week. He should make you some cash as well. In terms of any other ones that are out there, I mean, there's some big, you know, heftily priced folks out there that have still got pretty decent break-evens, or at least they will rise a lot of money comparatively, like Denny Avdija, 13.9 mil. Break-even is 51, and he's averaging 27 a game. They play 4 times this week, so he could just go absolutely ham on that break-even, and suddenly you go from having a 13.9 mil player to like a 15 mil, 16 mil player in 1 week. You know, just saying. I really like Denny. I really like what he's doing. It's just so hard to get all the players that you like into your team, isn't it? Jalen Duren, break even at 35. But Detroit have only got the 3 games this week, so it's a little bit tougher. Who else? Con Knipple's still only got a break even of 11 if you don't have him in your team. He's been very, very solid. Alexander Sarr is another one of those mid-prices at 12.1 mil. He's got a break even of 20. He is crushing it. Even someone like Nemes Quater, he's got a break even of 14. He's at 8.1 mil. And Reed Shepherd, I mean, we all sort of jumped off. He's now got a break even of -3. He's back up to 5.2 million. He scored 62 last week. Houston are obviously sort of, you know, using him more. He's figuring it out, it feels like a little bit. But they do play only the 3 games this week. They do play Washington, which is always nice. And like this is the part of the schedule you got to go, oh yes, got to keep an eye on the actual teams that they do play. Like if you look at some of the teams that play those four games this week, who are the ones who are playing like, I don't know, Utah, Brooklyn, Charlotte. And that's why I like the Bucks schedule so much, because they got the 2 games against Charlotte. They're playing a Dallas team that just is brutal to watch. The Lakers also have Charlotte and the Pelicans around OKC, Milwaukee. As I mentioned, the Spurs, like it feels like a really good matchup for Wemby playing against Golden State twice, Sacramento and Chicago as well, right? So anyway, Utah, Chicago, that's a fun one, but I don't know. Charlotte, they've got an interesting matchup because they've got the 2 Milwaukee games. I don't know. There's some pretty tasty looking schedules in there. So keep an eye on those. So with all this in mind, I mean, I don't think that was just about all of the break-evens. Like Jay Huff on the Pacers, he's got a break-even of 0. He's finally sort of looking to actually get out there and play. Davion Mitchell, as I mentioned, 8.3 mil, break-even of 7, looking very good. Josh Minot's break-even still only 9. He's still going to make a lot of cash. And Marvin Bagley has actually been, I mean, he scored 47 this week, averaging 12 at 5.1 mil. I'd kind of prefer Derek Queen. But anyway, so who are the trade targets for week 4? Well, I mean, as I said, the 4 games for 15 teams, I'm going to be trying to gear most of my trades towards players on those 15 teams, right? Right. So that's what we're going to do. So Atlanta, Charlotte, Cleveland, Dallas, Golden State, Clippers and Lakers, Milwaukee. Hopefully it's Algonquin for the good land this week. The Pelicans, the Magic, the Suns, the Blazers, the Kangs, the Spurs, and Utah. So obviously with Luka having 4 games, Giannis with 4 games. These are your top-notch, super-duper primos. The big question will be jumping off someone like Maxey for a week, who Maxey or Cade, those like especially with Maxey and VJ only having 2 games this week. But then the Sixers, I believe, the following week, go have a 4-game week, a 3-game week, a 4-game week. So makes it a bit tough, right? It's like if you want to jump off VJ, I think I'm okay with that. Ajay Mitchell, OKC, you've got the 3 games this week. They play Golden State, the Lakers, and then Charlotte. Pretty tasty. Don't mind it. But I don't know. It's really, really hard to sort of go, right, we're going to go to Luka, we're going to go to Giannis. We're going to have to sacrifice something and get another cheapie in. Like VJ to AJ is pretty straightforward. They're basically around the same price. But then to jump up to someone like Giannis or to Luka means that we have to sort of find that cash elsewhere, right? So whether or not you're moving on from someone like I've got Orsar Thompson in my team. I might look to downgrade to him to one of the swing position rookies, or maybe just try to middle this and get Denny Avdija in because Portland have got the 4 games as well. But I think your super duper primos of Giannis and Luka are your top notch priorities. Then it's probably folks like Denny or Alexander Sarr, but the Wiz have only got the 3 games this week anyway. But those are the folks who actually, keep rising with money. Derek Queen is a really good cheap option as your power forward. Obviously, AJ Mitchell, Cedric Howard, they're all, around that 7 mil mark as well. Kalkbrenner, if you don't have it as your backup center, what are you doing again still? Minot is still a really good bench option too. It's good to see people actually jumping on that. Con Knipple with their 4 games this week too. I actually don't mind the idea of playing Con Knipple on the actual court because I think he's a swing small forward shooting guard. So if you've got him in your team, I mean, you look at the way Charlotte sort of use him and the scores that he's putting up with LaMelo not there. This week, he's just out there going, well, check this out. He ripped off a 29, 23, and a 29 in his games. Like, that's just really, really elite sort of scoring. He sort of does a little bit of everything, does our man Con Knipple. So, yeah, if you don't have him already, I'd jump on that. I feel like I'll be maybe moving somebody else on off my court. He might actually start for me this week with Charlotte playing 4 games. So, otherwise, in terms of actual, the big scorers that we might not have, that I don't have, I think. But the other one's sort of around that level of maybe not a massive ownership. Devin Booker's owned by 12% of coaches. I think he'll continue on his run. He only scored the 83 this week. They've got the 4 games. Phoenix, he's just everything for them, right? So I don't mind a bit of Devin Booker. Denny Avdija, obviously, as I mentioned, I'm sort of steering clear a lot of the Kings. The Jazz, I mean, if you've got Lowry, this should be a big week for you. He's got Minnesota, Indy, Atlanta, and Chicago. I feel good about all 4 of those matchups, so Lowry's a really, really good option. I mean, the biggest problem for them is that no one else on that team is, apart from Keontae George, is doing too much. Markkanen managed the 45 this week. Keontae managed 60. Nurk has been absolutely randomly awesome. So Lowry's break-even, I think, this week is 100. But that comes after a week where they played the 3 games. He only managed 17, 17, and 11. They had a rough one against Minnesota, tough one against Detroit, and obviously a tough one against Boston. So it feels like Lowry should kick back into a bit of form, but for the moment, I don't know. It's a good matchup, good schedule, but I don't think I'd be going to him. But still, at that price point, not too bad. Otherwise, I mean, the Mavs, you've obviously got Cooper Flag. Donovan Mitchell, I already voiced my concerns. Atlanta, Jalen Johnson might be the one where you go, hello, check this out. But he was out nursing an injury the other day. So, again, if there's injury queries or concerns, I'm just sort of steering clear. So what am I probably going to do this week? My trades will probably be around trying to get Luka in, probably Derek Queen, maybe Ajay Mitchell. So I might just punt on Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe for the week. Like the 2 games, it's just probably going to be a really, really tough ask in terms of like your total overall scoring. When you can actually bring in like the super duper scorers like Luka or Giannis, like versus a team that's got 2 games this week, it's really, really hard. Like Maxey's only got to break even to 38. He's not going to lose you money. But the way we're sort of thinking about these things is like your overall ranking, your week-on-week league wins. Like this is the point where we've got some money to make, some trades to burn. So I kind of want get a couple more of these cash cows in there. Whereas Orsar, he's sort of like not really putting up the gigantic numbers. Detroit don't have a double this week, so don't have a 4-game week. So I feel like I'm okay with this because between those 3 dudes, Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, and Orsar Thompson, it's quite literally only 7 games of output, right? So for the amount of points that you're going to be scoring versus, 7 versus 11 games between Doncic, Queen, and AJ Mitchell. So that's just it's a lot of extra points that you're just leaving off the board. I'd rather be trading, and as I said last week, being really, really aggressive about getting some of your cash cows in, making money, and then jumping off. Because when we've got these week-on-week setups, it gets really, really hard to like fix mistakes straight away. You have to wait a week essentially, and it'll burn a hole in your brains. I'm much happier to go, right, this guy's only playing 2 games this week. We're jumping off. We're going somewhere else. And if worse comes to worse, we'll just get him back in next week. You know what I'm saying? So, because if you actually look at like the Lakers' schedule, they've got 4 this week. They've got 2 next week. So if we go Luka's 4 games this week, switch him back out for Tyrese Maxey next week, I'm not going to cry poor. Like, I think we've got 24 weeks of this NBA SuperCoach regular season sort of gear. At the moment, I'd rather get AJ Mitchell and Derek Queen in, make some cash, get Doncic to go way above his break-even, which I believe is, his break-even is 136 this week. But with 4 games, and considering like his average is absolutely through the roof, he had 68 this week and scored, didn't play in one of the games. So not bad. He's going to be fine, I reckon. So that's probably where I'm going to sit, and I'll probably throw the captaincy on Luka. But again, if he misses a game, it gets pretty hardcore, doesn't it? So it's either kind of maybe Luka or a Wemby. I might go with Luka. Some of those Wemby scores look pretty good though, don't they? I don't know. I think we'll go Luka for the minute. All right. So let us know what you reckon. What are the moves you're going to make? Who are the dudes that you're looking at the most? I want to know. Let us know. Hit us up in the comments. DM us. Jump on the socials. Get all around it. Let me know what you're doing. Toss around all the old grey matter. We all get smarter when we talk it out, don't we? So, all right, there you go. That's it for week 3 of NBA SuperCoach. We'll be back on Wednesday on Jim Does SuperCoach to wrap up week 10 of NFL SuperCoach. So if you're into that, listen to that show as well. In the meantime, make sure you're following NBA Straya, NFL Straya, and of course, Jim Does SuperCoach across all the socials, Twitter, Facey, IG, TikTok, YouTube, all that sort of stuff. We're all over the socials all the time. Jump in the comments, say g'day. As I said, throw around any thoughts, suggestions, queries, qualms that you've got. That's the best thing about SuperCoach. You just get to, throw it all around, see what other folks think. The good part about it. Get around NBA and NFL Straya as well. Just the shows, they're all awesome. Check a rating and review on your podcast app as well for Jim Does SuperCoach and those shows too. Rate, review, star, subscribe. You know what to do. It's 2025. And big thanks to Joshua De Laurentiis for the intro and outro song. He rocks. Go check him out. Support him. This has been Jim Does SuperCoach for NBA SuperCoach. The week 3 wrap. Top 1%, baby. Let's go. Woo! All right. Happy SuperCoaching.